The scream was the first thing Deputy Marcus Carter heard. It sliced through the cold midnight air like a jagged blade, echoing off the still water of Blackwater Lake. His flashlight beam cut across the mist as he sprinted down the narrow dock, boots pounding on the wet wood. The call had come in just 10 minutes earlier. A 23-year-old woman named Emily Rhodes had vanished during a late-night swim with friends. When officers arrived, they found her clothes folded neatly on the shore, her phone buzzing with unanswered messages. And then the lake went silent. Now, as Carter reached the end of the dock, something rippled in the water. At first, it looked like a patch of weeds stirred by the wind. Then he saw it, a pale hand breaking the surface, reaching skyward before vanishing beneath the black water. Carter didn't hesitate. He stripped off his gear and dove into the icy depths. But what he found below would haunt him for the rest of his life. There was no struggle, no thrashing, no sign of panic. Just a cold emptiness and a weightless silence that felt wrong. The visibility was barely a foot, the water thick and dark like ink. And then, in the beam of his flashlight, Carter saw her. Emily was suspended upright as if standing on the lake bed, her eyes wide open and her face frozen in terror. Her fingers brushed against something wooden and carved, protruding from the mud below. Carter reached toward it, but before his hand touched the object, the silt exploded around him in a swirling cloud. Something brushed past his leg. He turned, but nothing was there. By the time divers pulled him out, Emily was gone again. Her body would not surface for 3 more days. And when it did, it was miles from where she vanished. That night became one of dozens of baffling cases tied to Blackwater Lake, a man-made reservoir in northern Georgia that locals swear is cursed. To outsiders, it looks peaceful, 14 square miles of calm, reflective water ringed by pine forest and hiking trails. Families fish from the shore, teenagers sneak out to swim on hot summer nights, and tourists rent cabins with lakefront views. But beneath that serene surface lies a dark history few want to talk about. The story begins long before Emily Rhodes ever stepped into the water. In the early 1950s, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers flooded an entire valley to create the reservoir. What had been farmland and forest became a massive lake. But not everything was cleared away before the water rose. Beneath Blackwater Lake still lie the ruins of a forgotten town, crumbling foundations, old roads, and most disturbingly, an abandoned cemetery. Entire families were relocated. Some refused to leave. Some were never found. Locals whispered about angry spirits disturbed by the flooding, but officials dismissed those stories as superstition. Yet the tragedies began almost immediately. In 1956, a construction crew reported losing a worker during a routine inspection near the dam. His harness snapped and he fell into the water. Despite weeks of search efforts, his body was never recovered. Over the next decade, more incidents followed. Fishermen disappearing from boats, swimmers vanishing within sight of the shore, even seasoned divers reporting sudden equipment failures and panic attacks below the surface. By the 1980s, Blackwater Lake had claimed more than 100 lives. Today the number is believed to exceed 200. Investigators have struggled to explain the pattern. Some blame cold water shock, sudden currents, or hidden debris from the flooded town. Others suspect alcohol or recklessness. But even experienced divers and sober swimmers have vanished without warning. One of the most puzzling cases occurred in 1998, when brothers Jack and Samuel Morgan were night fishing less than 50 feet from shore. According to a nearby witness, their boat began rocking violently, then flipped. Jack surfaced and screamed for help, but Samuel never did. Jack swore something had pulled his brother straight down. Search teams combed the water for weeks but found nothing. Samuel's body surfaced 6 months later, wedged between 2 submerged tree trunks nearly a mile from where he vanished. His watch was still ticking. It's cases like these that have made even seasoned officers uneasy. It's not just the drownings, Deputy Carter said years after the Rhodes case. It's the way they happen. Fast, silent. Like something down there is waiting. Carter's not alone. Divers who've worked Blackwater Lake speak of strange sensations. Sudden drops in temperature, equipment malfunctions without explanation, and in some cases whispers through their comms that no one topside admits descending. Several have reported seeing shapes moving just beyond their lights, darting back into the darkness when approached. One of the most chilling accounts came from diver Laura Mitchell, a veteran search and recovery specialist with over 15 years of experience. In 2013, she was part of a team investigating the disappearance of 2 college students who vanished during a camping trip near the lake. On her 3rd dive, she descended to roughly 40 feet when she noticed something unusual, a faint glow coming from beneath a collapsed structure. She swam closer and discovered dozens of wooden carvings scattered across the lake bed, crude human figures arranged in a circle around what appeared to be a small altar. Before she could examine them, her regulator jammed, forcing her to surface. Later analysis showed no mechanical fault. Mitchell never dove in Blackwater Lake again. Stories like hers have fueled decades of rumors about what lies beneath. Some locals believe the carvings date back to indigenous rituals tied to the land before it was flooded. Others think they're evidence of more recent human activity, possibly occult groups drawn to the lake's dark reputation. A few dismiss them entirely as debris misinterpreted by frightened divers. But even skeptics can't explain the frequency of accidents. According to county records, the lake's drowning rate is 3 times higher than that of similar bodies of water in the region. Many victims are never recovered, and those who are often appear far from their last known location. Despite these disturbing patterns, Blackwater Lake remains a popular destination. Officials warn swimmers to stay close to shore and wear life jackets, but those precautions don't always help. In 2019, a family picnic turned into tragedy when 10-year-old Noah Campbell vanished while wading in waist-deep water just a few feet from his parents. Witnesses said he slipped beneath the surface without a sound. The water was calm and there were no signs of distress. Search teams recovered his body 2 days later, upright and motionless, in 30 feet of water. His autopsy showed no signs of trauma. The cause of death was listed as drowning, but investigators privately admitted the circumstances didn't make sense. For residents who live near the lake, the sense of dread is part of daily life. Some refuse to enter the water altogether. Others avoid driving near it at night. There are countless stories of headlights flickering out on the bridge that crosses its widest point, or strange figures seen standing waist-deep in the water on moonless nights. Most dismiss these as tricks of the light, reflections, or overactive imaginations. But for those who've lost loved ones there, the lake's darkness feels personal, almost deliberate. One such person is Janet Rhodes, Emily's mother. In the years since her daughter's death, she's become an outspoken advocate for deeper investigations into Blackwater Lake. "They told me it was an accident," she said during a 2021 interview. But Emily was a strong swimmer. And she wasn't alone. Something happened down there, something no one wants to talk about. Janet has filed multiple requests for state and federal agencies to re-examine the site, but so far, none have agreed. Officials maintain that while the lake's history is tragic, there is no evidence of foul play. And yet, the evidence keeps mounting. In 2022, sonar scans conducted during a routine maintenance survey detected several large anomalies near the deepest part of the lake, objects arranged in a circular pattern that do not match any known debris from the flooded town. The report was quietly shelved, but leaked excerpts describe unnatural geometric formations and organic material clustered around them. When a local journalist requested access to the full findings under public records laws, the request was denied due to ongoing investigations. What exactly those investigations are remains unclear. Some former officials have hinted at contamination concerns or unstable sediment. Others, speaking off-record, have suggested that authorities fear drawing attention to the lake's darker legends. Either way, the silence has only deepened the mystery. And now, new disappearances are renewing old fears. Just last summer, a group of friends camping near the southern shore reported seeing something move beneath their canoe at dawn. Something larger than a human, gliding silently beneath the surface. Hours later, one of them, 27-year-old Thomas Green, vanished while collecting water at the shoreline. His footprints ended at the water's edge. Despite an intensive week-long search, no trace of him was ever found. His case remains open. For Deputy Carter, who still patrols the area after nearly 3 decades, Blackwater Lake is more than just a body of water. It's a presence, one that feels alive. "It's like the lake chooses who it wants," he once said. "And when it does, there's nothing you can do." He's retired now, but the memory of that pale hand reaching from the water still visits him in his dreams. Tonight, the lake is as still as ever. The moon hangs low over the pine trees, casting silver light across the black surface. Somewhere in the darkness below, relics of a forgotten town sit untouched, and perhaps something else watches from the shadows. Another summer is coming, and with it, more swimmers, more fishermen, more unsuspecting visitors drawn by the beauty of the water. Most will leave without incident. But some, no one can say who, will not. And as the night deepens, the mist thickens over Blackwater Lake, hiding what lies beneath. A single ripple breaks the surface near the old dock, spreading outward in perfect circles. There's no wind, no boat, no reason for the water to move. But it does, and then it stills again. Something down there is stirring. The ripple that spread across the surface that night wasn't just water disturbed by the wind. It marked the start of another disappearance, one that would push Blackwater Lake into national headlines and force investigators to question everything they thought they knew. It happened on the evening of August 12, 2023. 29-year-old Michael Turner, a local history teacher and amateur diver, had spent weeks researching the lake's dark past. Fascinated by its submerged town and the rumors of strange artifacts beneath the water, he convinced two friends to join him for a nighttime exploration. Michael had told them he wanted to find proof of the old cemetery that lay beneath the lake, proof that might explain why so many people vanished there. The trio launched their small boat just after sunset, heading toward the deepest part of the lake, known to locals as Dead Man's Hollow. Michael strapped on a GoPro and a headlamp before slipping into the black water. At 11:47 p.m., his camera recorded its final moments. The footage began normally, the glow of his light cutting through the murky water, his bubbles rising toward the surface. At about 28 feet down, Michael's camera caught the shape of something jutting from the lake bed, an old wrought iron fence, its rusted spikes still intact. He swam closer, his breathing steady, the silt swirling around his hands as he brushed it away. What appeared next was unmistakable, a headstone, its inscription almost illegible but clearly marked with a date, 1893. Michael steadied himself and turned the camera. Several more headstones stood nearby, half buried in silt, leaning at odd angles. "Got it?" he whispered into the mic, his voice trembling with excitement. "This is it, the cemetery is real." But then something shifted in the darkness. The water clouded as if stirred by a powerful current, yet his depth gauge showed no movement. Michael panned the light. Nothing. He steadied his breathing, checking his air supply. Then, from the corner of the frame, something drifted past. It was small, almost insignificant, a carved wooden figure tumbling lazily in the water. Another followed. Then another. Within seconds, dozens of them were floating up from the silt, surrounding him. "Where are these coming from?" he muttered. His voice was shaky now. The carvings weren't random debris, they were shaped like people. Some with hands raised, some with mouths open in silent screams. And then the light flickered. The camera spun wildly as Michael thrashed in the water. His breathing quickened. A muffled shout. The last frame showed his light beam swinging upward, and catching the outline of something massive gliding just beyond reach. Then the screen went black. Michael never resurfaced. The search that followed was one of the largest in county history. Dozens of divers combed the lake for a week, but they found no trace, not of Michael, not of his gear, not even the GoPro. His two friends who remained in the boat above swore they felt the vessel jolt hard about 15 minutes after he went under, as if something large had slammed into it from below. They heard no cry, no splash, no struggle. Just silence. Michael Turner's disappearance reignited public fear and intensified scrutiny of Blackwater Lake. News outlets from across the country descended on the small town, dredging up decades of tragedy and demanding answers. Officials maintained that the lake was safe, but locals weren't convinced. Many began calling for it to be drained, a proposal engineers quickly dismissed as impossible. Beneath the surface lay not just water, but an entire landscape of flooded structures, ancient trees, and tons of silt. Draining it would take years and cost millions, and no one could guarantee what they'd find at the bottom. But the pressure was mounting. That fall, Sheriff Alan Reese, a veteran officer who had investigated more than 24 drowning cases at the lake, quietly reopened a series of cold cases dating back to the 1960s. What he discovered deepened the mystery. In case after case, victims were found in eerily similar positions, upright, eyes open as if frozen mid-step. Many were located far from where they'd entered the water, some more than a mile away. Autopsies often listed drowning as the cause of death, but several coroners noted an absence of typical signs of struggle. It was as if they hadn't fought to survive at all. Reese also uncovered something else, a pattern. Nearly every unexplained disappearance occurred within a narrow zone near Dead Man's Hollow, the same area where Michael vanished. That zone aligned almost perfectly with the location of the original town cemetery, now submerged beneath more than 40 feet of water. Determined to get answers, Reese authorized a new sonar scan of the area. Conducted in early 2024, the survey revealed something extraordinary. Alongside the expected debris, foundations, tree stumps, twisted metal, were dozens of upright shapes arranged in a near-perfect circle. Most were roughly human-sized. Some appeared to be partially buried. One, larger than the rest, sat at the center. When asked about the findings, officials offered no comment. The data, they said, was inconclusive. But a technician who worked on the scan later told a reporter, off the record, that what he saw didn't look natural. It looked deliberate. Meanwhile, the stories from locals grew stranger. Campers spoke of hearing chanting across the water on windless nights. Fishermen reported snagging their lines on something solid that moved beneath the surface. And more than one driver claimed to see figures standing in the shallows as they crossed the bridge after dark, figures that vanished when headlights touched them. Among the most chilling accounts came from a woman named Sarah Collins, who nearly drowned in the lake as a teenager. Now in her 40s, she returned to Blackwater to tell her story for the first time. "I remember going under," she said, her hands trembling. "I was a strong swimmer, but something felt like it was pulling me down. Not hands, not an animal. It was like the water itself wrapped around me." She blacked out before she could reach the surface. When rescuers pulled her from the lake, she was unconscious but alive. "I've never gone near that water again," she said. "It doesn't want us there." It's easy to dismiss stories like Sarah's as fear clouding memory. But when patterns repeat across decades, and hundreds of victims, even skeptics begin to wonder. Hydrologists have proposed theories ranging from sudden thermoclines to methane pockets trapped beneath the lakebed. Anthropologists point to the site's possible sacred significance, suggesting that flooding a burial ground may have stirred deeply rooted fears in the collective psyche. Yet none of those explanations fully account for the physical evidence. The strange carvings, the upright bodies, the geometric formations on sonar. And then there's the question of the carvings themselves. Since Laura Mitchell's dive in 2013, at least 3 more divers have reported seeing similar figures beneath the lake. In one case, a diver claimed to have retrieved one, only to have it vanish from the evidence locker days later. County officials deny that any such artifact was ever collected. But Mitchell remains adamant about what she saw. "They weren't debris," she said in a 2022 interview. "They were placed there." If true, that raises disturbing possibilities. Were these carvings part of a ritual tied to the original cemetery? Could they have been left by those who built the dam, or by later visitors drawn by the lake's dark reputation? And why are they so often associated with disappearances? Some believe the answer lies in the town that once stood beneath Blackwater Lake. Known as Mill Creek, it was a small farming settlement founded in the 1800s. By the time the government announced plans to flood the valley, Mill Creek was nearly abandoned, but not entirely. Historical records show that several families resisted relocation, and at least 5 people were unaccounted for when the waters rose. Their bodies were never recovered. Rumors spread that some townsfolk had sworn revenge, cursing anyone who disturbed their resting place. Others claimed that older, darker rituals had been practiced there long before settlers arrived. Official records are frustratingly sparse. Most of Mill Creek's documents were lost when the town hall burned down in 1949. But a handful of surviving letters hint at rising tensions in the final months before the flooding. One, written by a local preacher, warned of unholy ceremonies taking place near the cemetery and begged authorities to intervene. Whether those ceremonies ever occurred, or if they left anything behind, remains unknown. What is known is that Blackwater Lake's death toll continues to climb. By conservative estimates, at least 240 people have died there since its creation. Many of their stories follow the same haunting script: sudden disappearance, silent struggle, and bodies that seem to move after death. And yet, despite everything, the sonar anomalies, the eyewitness accounts, the carvings, the cemetery, no agency has ever launched a comprehensive investigation into what lies beneath. Funding, jurisdiction, and liability concerns have stalled every proposal. Officially, the lake is considered low risk. Unofficially, no one wants to go near it. But that may soon change. Earlier this year, a private research group specializing in underwater archaeology announced plans to conduct the most detailed exploration of Blackwater Lake ever attempted. Using advanced submersibles and high-resolution imaging, they intend to map the lakebed and examine the anomalies detected by previous scans. Their mission, set for next summer, could finally reveal the truth, or unleash something better left undisturbed. For now, Blackwater Lake remains silent. Tourists still come. Fishermen still cast their lines. Children still splash near the shore, laughing in the sun. But those who know its history feel a weight in the air, a tension that builds with every ripple on the water's surface. They know that somewhere beneath their feet lies a forgotten town, a buried cemetery, and perhaps something else entirely. And every summer, without fail, the lake takes someone new. Late one night in September, a patrol car idled near the south shore. Deputy Carter, now long retired, sat in the passenger seat beside a young officer named Daniels. They were there to check a report of strange lights on the water. Carter didn't want to come back, but curiosity, or maybe guilt, had brought him. The lake was still as glass. Then, out near the center, a faint glow pulsed beneath the surface. What? Twice. 3 times. Daniels leaned forward. What is that? Carter didn't answer. He'd seen it before. The light faded and the water was calm again. Daniels sighed, shaking his head. Must have been a reflection. But Carter knew better. He stared into the darkness, the memory of Emily Rhodes and Michael Turner heavy on his mind. It's never just a reflection, he murmured. And then from the far shore came a sound, faint but unmistakable. A single scream, distant and sharp, echoing across the water. The officers froze. The scream came again. Then silence. They radioed for backup, but before anyone could respond, the lake stirred. A slow, widening ripple spread outward from the center, even though nothing and no one was there. The air grew colder. The night grew still. And as the 2 men watched, the ripple faded back into glass. Something beneath Blackwater Lake had awakened again.